Welcome to Revoicing the Future, a Women of NAMM podcast presented by AKG. Just as one revoices a chord, Revoicing the Future creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole. It will uplift women's voices in the music products industry, which have earned their time to be the root of the chord. Once a month, you can catch productive and valuable conversations with women working in manufacturing, retail, the nonprofit sector, music education, touring, and overall women who inspire us. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. This podcast is co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olson. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Revoicing the Future. I'm your host, Natalie Morrison, and I'm here with
Stephanie Lamond, your resident listener of Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given, which is very fun. Audible. So strong recommendation if anybody wants to live more audaciously. She's very fun.
You just threw that in there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I am other than that. I don't need to say that I'm my role anymore. I'm just going to think of something fun. This is the bit, everyone.
5 years later, we're still...
5 years later. Keeping it fresh somehow, you know?
I know. We have to keep our audience on their toes, right?
Yeah.
On
Keep
our
listening,
toes.
everybody. Don't skip over our very short intros. You never know what you're going to get.
You all know the drill. Follow along, subscribe, like, and we've got another deep dive coming up in June. So just keep in the know of what's happening with Women of NAMM.
Maybe if you feel inclined, leave us a review somewhere. I feel like we never really plug that, but I hear that on podcasts a lot, and I forget to plug that on ours. Like, it's very helpful. If you have ever dug this at all, it legitimizes us a lot. So take a sec. If you like us, only if you like us. If you don't, skip what I just said. Or don't. I guess we can't be afraid of feedback, both positive and negative. But you could email it rather than write it on a... You could email that if it's negative, and then post a review if it's positive. Please.
This month we're focusing on education, and I'm really, really excited about who our guest is for the episode because we have Erin Barra, who is the Director of Popular Music at Arizona State University, a newly named Yamaha 40 Under 40 educator, and she is the founder of We Make Noise. So Steph, can you tell us a little bit about what We Make Noise is?
Yeah, We Make Noise is awesome. In a quick word, they are a global organization, and their mission is to harness the power of music and technology to advance global gender equity, equipping their communities with tools that cultivate limitless potential. And I think that sums up perfectly what you'll hear in this conversation. We have so many orgs now that are focused on the music industry, how to prepare people for it, gender equity in music. And the lens that We Make Noise has on this work almost makes that feel small. Like it's about teaching these things as a way to change the world. It's more about empowering through music as the tool rather than the industry as the end in and of itself. And it's so powerful to look at this work and this industry that we're part of, right? And this art form that we all advocate for from that lens. And so they blend music creation, technology training, community building, career development. She walks us through all of it. It's so holistic and so kind of hitting every bit of how one can do this well. But yeah, to equip folks for success in the music industry, but also beyond, not even just in the industry, right? Just in life, to be able to communicate using these tools. It's really inspiring. And also her journey, like she just models that surrender to the universe's plan for you. Just like here I am. And then the minute you get on the slipstream you're supposed to be on, bam, 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 bam.
Boom, boom.
Yep.
I also wanted to say that one of the things that we talk about a lot is that We Make Noise really listens to what their community needs and wants. And I don't know if my comment clearly was articulated the way that I wanted it to. So I just wanted to say that I think it's amazing that they are so focused on listening, right? Because by being an organization that listens, you'll get more people wanting to listen to what you bring to the table. And it's really, I feel like it is rare to see organizations really just say, no, we are built on truly listening to what is needed.
And then executing responsive action. Because that's also connection. When people feel heard, they want to plug into an organization. They want to be in a chapter. They want to start their own chapter kind of thing because, there's room for them there. So
and that's been the whole trajectory of the organization, right? So you'll learn about that through this episode as just always responding, always kind of moving with where the market, where the industry kind of takes us over the 12-year lifespan and more.
Yeah, it's a cool journey. And she has a really, really clear vision on how to prepare people for success in this work. And so, yeah, we should just stop talking and let you start hearing from Erin because she's brilliant.
Yes. So sit back, grab your favorite snack.
Oh, that rhymed.
Oh, yeah.
That's cute.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hi, Erin. Welcome to Revoicing the Future. We are so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
First and foremost, happy late birthday. As we're recording this, you celebrated a big one a week ago, so happy birthday.
Yes, I just turned 40, and randomly, I just made my first ever 40 under 40 list, and the prerequisite that I had to be 39 on March 31st. And then my birthday was the next day.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was like a meant to be sort of situation.
So cool. Well, we're excited to have you join us. And we both wanted to speak to you about We Make Noise for a really long time. And it's just amazing that we're able to finally come together to do this. So we always love to start our episodes really learning about your career journey. So how did you get started into the music industry?
Well, somehow my parents had the foresight to put me in like a music preschool. And so I have been actually studying piano since I was like 4, very, very young music maker, and then continued to do that all through high school and did all sorts of random things like played in the jazz band, was in the pit for the musicals, started writing songs, just, that traditional sort of experimentation you do as a young person. And yeah, I was a little confused about what I wanted to do at first, but then I ended up at Berklee studying songwriting, and this was the early 2000s. And I got a songwriting and a piano performance degree, which I often say made me the most unemployable person that ever existed. In 2006, and then moved to New York and just sort of did my thing, made it through one of the financial crises that I'm sure I'll experience in my lifetime. And, I just have never stopped going. So I don't know, it started when I was quite young and I never really considered anything else. It just sort of unfolded.
Yeah. Cool. I love that way I think it's a really good way to put it, the unfolding of it, because, right, it's also so rare that there's ever a very linear path in music. So that feels apropos.
Yes, I'm sure we'll talk about all that as well. No straight lines here.
Never a straight line. Also, when someone asks you like where you want to be in 5 years, I'm like, wherever the journey takes me.
On a beach.
Yeah, right? Yes.
So you wear many hats, from educator to founder to producer, and you're also a musician. And I really enjoyed over the past month, especially during Women's History Month, you kind of reliving that a little bit and telling that journey, and also attending South by Southwest. So it was a really beautiful moment of reflection as a witness, watching you kind of reflect on that aspect of your life. So can you talk about what that period of your life was like? And was there a moment that sparked a shift to focus more on music education versus producing and songwriting?
Totally. Yeah. So my first 7 years in New York were really focused on cultivating a career as an artist. And it was a totally different music industry. Like now there's this acknowledgement that everybody has to do everything. But, in 2006, Facebook was still sort of like not even really a thing yet. So this idea of being like multi-hyphenate or doing more than one thing very well, especially as a woman, was sort of not a thing. And so I was really just focused in this one direction. And I mean, the story ends with the shift being because I was profoundly unhappy, but really, like, what I wouldn't go back to that piece of shit apartment in Brooklyn and just like live that life for 2 seconds again. Now I really look back on it with a considerable amount of nostalgia and like love for this younger version of myself who had a lot to say at the time, I guess. And after just years and years of that, I don't know, I was feeling really unhappy, never really accomplishing, or I would accomplish what I would quantify as like success. And then I would just move the carrot a little farther and sort of never seem to be where I wanted to be and didn't enjoy that. And I just wanted to have like a solvent lifestyle also. I think being an artist, you choose to be hungry, and I like just wanted to be fed at some place. And it was also feeling really small to me. When I see it now, I realize that that's what was going on, that I was just like incredibly stifled by this idea of what an artist was. And so I really purposefully decided to sort of redefine what I thought success was. And it was much more broad, and it had to do more with getting involved in projects that excited me and surviving just by only working in the music industry and being happy, like creatively fulfilled with a certain amount of work that I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's actually when I started doing a lot more consulting, started working for different types of music tech companies, got into teaching, that's when We Make Noise, which was currently known as Beats by Girls, kind of began. That all happened in the same kind of year, actually.
Oh, interesting. It was like a catapulting moment of all these new ideas and ventures coming to life.
Yeah, it was like an expansion of what I considered something that I would do, from a really narrow mindset and narrative that I had to a more expansive view of who I was and what I was capable of. And I'm still figuring out where the edges of that are.
Yeah, but that's rad. And I'm curious, it's getting a little granular, but do you remember what it was that helped you redefine success like that? What inspired that expansiveness, right? Because that's not just like one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I get it now. Were there mentors in your life that were pushing you that way, or books? What inspired that shift? Because that's such a cool, profound evolution there.
I think it was a number of things. I mean, being really unhappy will push you to do some stuff.
You gotta fix it. Yeah, and you talk about wanting to be fed, right? Like, there's got to be a better way.
I was quite desperate, I will say that.
Stubborn unhappiness.
Exactly. There was, at the time, he was my publicist. Now he's a very well-known artist coach. His name's Patrick Ermlich. And I credit him with helping me think bigger. And he was just always asking questions like, okay, well, who told you that you have to do that? Or why does it have to be that way? Just challenging my internal narrative. And when I look back on it now, it's like I was paying him and his company to help publicize my artist career. And then through the action of working with him, I actually sort of realized that that's not what I want to do anymore.
Yeah.
But so we've remained very close and continue to work together on all sorts of things. So I think it was really those two things together, like him and his influence and, my desperation and unhappiness.
Yeah, that's rad. I'm talking about someone that found his niche too. It sounds like an artist coach who was doing that job instead of the publicist job with you, really.
Yeah,
cool.
Totally. That's very true. We sort of found it out together in some ways.
But I also think too, you openly admitting your unhappiness is profound, because I feel like there are a lot of artists out there who feel like, if I don't do this and I don't get this right, what else is there for me to do? And you've really kind of crafted and found your pathway through it all. And now look at you, right?
Yeah, it's good resilience, because it's so identity and like existentially based too. It's big stuff. So yeah, that's brave, honest.
I'm assuming there's like similar stories with most of the people that you have on here. I think to break through to whatever's on the other side, you kind of have to break down quite often.
But not everybody likes to talk about that part.
No.
I feel like that gets glossed. I never talk about when I was like sitting behind a building crying at my day job that I hated back in my early 20s, right? But when you talk about thinking about those times though, right? We're like, that's what I think about. I'm like, never going back to that. And how I can so romanticize that now when I look back as, I don't know, those times in our life, I feel like it's important to mark them and not forget that they were part of that overall flow.
I used to feel, I don't even know what the word would be, I think maybe disappointed in myself for many years once I transitioned, because you sort of buy into this idea of who you are and what that means, especially as an artist, because it's an incredibly narcissistic thing to do. You have to have that part of you to be an artist. Like, you just have to believe with no boundaries. And I did that for so long. And once I switched, I sort of felt like maybe I had given up. And now, many, many years later, I feel great about it, but I didn't for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know something like all of this is in front of you. Yeah, it's hard. But then you look back and you're on a 40 under 40 list a day before you turn 40. I'm obsessed with that. So for music education specifically too, I know Nat was wanting to get into that part of it. So like once you got on that track, how did that evolve once you got back on that journey?
The education component of it was like another sort of unfolding of random things happening to me.
I love it.
This is like nobody's story into academia, but I will recount the tale. When I started to do more projects that weren't about my artist trajectory, I started working with a lot of other artists, and I was getting a really large amount of clients that were women or gay men, basically. And Facebook was sort of new at the time, but I realized that people were way more interested in how I was making my music as opposed to listening to my music.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yes. And so I made a really conscious decision in some ways to treat myself sort of like a business and say, okay, this is where I'm actually receiving traction and dialogue in my career. It's like when I'm talking about synthesizers and software. And so I just decided that that was the role that had been cast for me, and like what would it feel like if I really just dove headfirst into that. So that's when I started what is formerly known as Beats by Girls. And it was kind of crazy how explosively fast it all happened. I started what was an Indiegogo campaign to sort of fund what would be eventually We Make Noise. And even before the campaign was finished, another nonprofit in New York City had decided they're like, we're going to take this, we're going to incubate you, they gave me a job.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was called the Lower East Side Girls Club. And they knew they had wanted to do some audio programs, but at the time it was still pretty new. There just really wasn't a lot happening in space at the time, which seems ridiculous now because it's like such a saturated area to be in. It feels like that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, literally 6 months later from conceiving the idea of it, I was like teaching in a classroom in front of 13-year-olds. And I had never done it before. It was just this like, all right, here we go situation.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too far off from what I was doing with my private clients, because you are teaching people how to use software, how to troubleshoot. I had been doing this sort of exchange of information for many years. And I also think that that's basically the same thing as writing songs, right? It's like information or knowledge from me needs to be transferred into another person, and you have certain tools to do that. And so teaching really was just like an extension of that same skill set, communication skill set. And yeah, then I was doing it. And literally within 6 months, I got offered a job at Berklee that I didn't apply for. A woman who was my mentor for many years, she saw what I was doing, and I was working as a consultant for Ableton at the time as well. And so I just was like highly visible in the space. And she said, I need somebody who understands songwriting and music technology. And you're one of the only people that I know. Like, would you be interested in coming here and helping us? And I didn't even think it was real when she said so at first. And then I spent 6 years there. So I went literally straight from studios, stages to middle school girls to, debatably one of the best music schools in the world. Yeah.
It's like all these like happy accidents.
Yeah.
The minute
Everything.
you got on the right stream of it or the flow of it, it just was like, whoop, here you are.
Totally. Yeah. It all was for sure the frequency of it all. I was attracting a lot.
The exact same kind of vibe. And so Berklee and then We Make Noise was still going on the side. So in balancing all that too, I guess, how did those two play together? How long ago was that now?
Like from 2013 to 2020 was really, We Make Noise started right before I went to Berklee in 2014. So I spent 6 years there. And then from 2020 till now, I've been at Arizona State University.
So we'll get back to the We Make Noise because that's a whole other topic of kind of diving into that. But so at ASU, you're the director of popular music. And since I work for Yamaha, we're really focused on diving into that day-to-day of kids that don't see themselves in that band and orchestra space, right? The kids that want to get involved in music, but we have to meet those students where they are. So I love what you're bringing to Arizona State with the popular music program. And then also just seeing that you guys had this music industry conference that you did this past week. So can you tell us a little bit about the program and what you've cultivated over there?
Yeah. So I've been at Arizona State for 5 years, and I was recruited to come here to found the program. I honestly, again, it really feels like a complete accident, which has gotten me here. But I was recruited for the job, and they recruited me 3 times before I finally applied. And it was like this moment of, I was just kind of fed up with some things that I was experiencing in that current situation that I was in, and really applied almost as just an experiment to see like, okay, I would benefit from having this experience of applying for a director position, and maybe I'll have a little leverage in some other circumstances.
Yeah.
And so during the interview process, I put forth what I thought was just like an incredibly progressive vision, because I really didn't have anything to lose. Like, I already had a job, so why not just say it how you believe it really should be? So I showed them that vision of inclusive excellence, and what does it look like if we don't pretend like those things are, diametrically opposed from each other, and can they live together, and can we all share?
Yeah.
Which seems ridiculous, but at a college level, it's like sometimes the music engineering kids are like the 1%ers, they're the ones that get the most access to technology, and we spend the most money on their degree. So I just kind of went for it, and they're like, cool, yeah, let's do that. And so next thing I know, I was like, hey, I did tell my husband, I'm like, so that thing that, remember when I told you I was applying for this job? I got it, yeah. So anyways, next thing I know, I woke up in Phoenix and I lived here, and now, so we're 5 years in and it's going real well. The entire idea of it's almost the opposite of my own college experience, in so much as it's more about breadth than it is about depth. So like, sure, there are specialists out there, but you don't really just get to be a drummer anymore. So if we entered with that assumption that plan A is like the sum of many parts, as opposed to one thing that you're actually quite good at. So it's really based on like, you pick a couple of things that you're really interested in, and then you explore them, not with incredible depth, but maybe like 2, 3, 4 classes per specialization, and a really decent amount of entrepreneurship and thinking about learning for the rest of your life, and just kind of like really reflective of my own experience.
Yeah. You're kind of training like an outlook almost, or like a type of industry person versus like an engineer, right?
That's exactly what my degree program was. And I was strictly marketing communications, but it was a little bit of, okay, try advertising, try PR, try events.
So smart.
Try marketing. It's this overall kind of holistic approach. And then if you were interested in a specific path, you could just kind of focus that in your internships or whatever your capstone was.
I think it's great to give people choices.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to hit when you get out of school. So
exactly. Like, their life will be a series of choices that they have to make. And if you give people agency, then that's what they expect in the future. And we sort of redefined what musicianship might mean at a music school. So you don't have to be proficient in an instrument. You don't have to have a lot of experience. You just have to have the ears for it, really. And we can assess whether or not somebody's got the ears. So we get a lot of different types of people. It's a very diverse group of music makers. And I often tell people that the music industry is sort of making music against the backdrop of competition, or like collaboration against the backdrop of competition. And ours is collaboration against the backdrop of community. It's much more like we're all together just trying to figure it out. And it's a good vibe. It's a really good vibe.
That's so cool.
Which is how you slowly build a better industry too, by seeding more people in it that have that mindset. That's awesome.
Thank you. Well, we'll see, roll it forward another 10 years. We'll see where we get.
And so, right. So that was the vision. It was a program that was more representative of the industry now and more able to train breadth versus specialty in a handful of things versus one thing. We're setting up people a little bit for failure in getting out there like fish out of water. No, you're doing the dang thing. That's cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
I wish I'd gone to a school like that.
Everybody says that when they see our building
Yes.
too. They're like, I wish this had existed. And I think sometimes I feel bad because there's a kind of a bummer to the fact that you have to be everything now. Like, I don't love the fact that we have to teach people that they have to have 8 side hustles in order to make life happen. And I wish that there was a job application for producer, but there's just not. So we are reacting to the market for sure.
And I think from like a mental health standpoint of that too, if you're prepared for it and we're ready to handle it though, but I feel like that's when it gets dangerous, is when you aren't ready for that and you're stuck and you're burnt out and you're like, why is this even happening? So you are setting them up to be aware that it's a puzzle piece and to almost like, I don't know, you can set yourself up where you're not struggling so hard when you know it's going to be a struggle.
When you prepare them.
Yeah,
when
you know that you need all the things, it's less of a surprise. But I feel like it's still healthier, even though it's not a healthy situation we're all in right now as an industry.
Well, you're like saving yourself at least one existential crisis. That's for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah. Get it out of the way early.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll come. They will continue to come, but at least you'll be more prepared.
Love it. Okay, so let's go back to We Make Noise and dive on in. So the organization began in 2013. Was there an initial full spark of there needs to be this organization? And it was Beats by Girls before it transitioned to We Make Noise.
I mean, yeah, it was like all the things kind of happening at the same time, just really taking stock of what was going right in my life and what the signs were and like reading the tea leaves. I don't know. Like when I look back on it now, so much makes sense to me, but in the moment, I still didn't know. It just like the great happening.
Yeah. I must do this next.
Kind of. Yeah. When I worked for Ableton, there was a really concentrated period of time from about 2011 to 2014 where I was working for them a lot. And the first push had come out right around this time. And so I was one of the main product specialists. I basically like held down DC all the way up to Maine and did like the Northeast quadrant of every Best Buy, all the guitar centers, all the universities, just sort of evangelizing the product at the time. And I fully see this now, but I didn't really understand why they even wanted me to do that at the time. And I think it's really easy as a young woman to just always feel like you're an imposter. I think probably regardless of gender, but I held on to that for a really long time. And there weren't people that looked like me doing that work. I was literally the only female product specialist that they had for that entire time that I worked for them.
Wow.
And now I see that I represented a user base that was really unrepresented, that I was quite good at communicating something to other people, that I also had like a music skill set that so many of their users, or like the representative users that they had, they weren't singer-songwriters, they were techno producers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I look at it and I say, wow, I was really bringing a lot of value to that situation that I really didn't understand. But I was quite visible and I was just getting so much traction and feedback that I didn't understand at the time. And it was all centered around this concept of, it really felt like it was just me out there for the longest. Lots of people were coming to me to try to access either the information that I had or mentorship or, you know, they just wanted to connect with somebody else who looked like them and knew what it felt like to be them, to be a singer-songwriter who has to sort of figure it out all on their own because they're so frustrated by every collaborative experience they've ever had. And, you know, this is well before YouTube was populated with, you know, cogent information about how to do things. So it was just a different time. And it really felt like the community was coalescing around me and things were just happening to me. And I just was responding to what was going on, to be honest. Like, it just made total sense for me to do it. And I don't really remember much about the experience except like that it just felt like it needed to be done. And so I did it.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like what you were doing in your work too, like you said, they were kind of paralleling. It was just the population kind of shifted in more an intentional way over here for the org, but you were just doing the same work everywhere else. So totally, it was just like the conversations you were having and all of that. Yeah, it's all just kind of flows. And so for people who might not be as familiar, what does the org look like today? And what do y'all focus on? And like, what are you tackling currently in this version of the org?
So now we're 12 years later and
Congrats.
thank you.
That's huge.
It feels like a long time. So the mission of the organization is to harness the power of music and technology to advance global gender equity. And so that means a lot. It means, yes, we want more women in the music industry. We want more non-binary producers in the workplace. But I just think the tools are incredibly transferable. And I have to tell everybody's parent who wants to talk to me the same thing about getting a music degree. But I think that all the tools that you learn from making music, from learning how to produce, they're really transferable skills, like moving towards an ambiguous end result through collaboration and communication. Like, you just become an employable person when you use the left and the right side of your brain and, you know, put it all together. So sometimes we're doing that work in like emerging economies, and it's not about becoming a Grammy winner in that context. In other circumstances, we do that work in large industry hubs, and it's very much centered on career pathways. So we have maybe a different perspective on it from some of the other organizations that are really similar to ours. And so our work now is bifurcated really into these two buckets. So one of them is our chapter model. We operate in over 55 cities around the world, and we're across 6 continents now. So we're literally everywhere.
Wow.
And we help local leaders bring We Make Noise programming to their communities. So It's very different based on the cultural and the economic context. But the thing that sort of ties them all together is our 3 pillars of education, so giving people the information they need in order to accomplish a task, community development, because in all industries, but especially the creative arts industries, like your network is your net worth, really, and your ability to cultivate and maximize relationships is like how people become successful. And then lastly, it's career development. So giving people real opportunities to work at a professional level or to open a door, or like pull them off from the bench and, put them in the game. So all 3 of these things sort of are the main tenets of what's happening at the chapter level. And then those people know what's best for their community. So we let them decide and we just really play a supportive role. And then we have a global portfolio of programs, which is sort of the other bucket. And it's a lot of social enterprise work. So we have a Splice label that we run and we hire and pay creators to come on. We have a platform. It's called the Hub, the We Make Noise Hub, which is like basically an online chapter. We have We Make Noise sessions. We run these writing and production retreats all over the world that are artist-centric. We have festivals. It's sort of like a portfolio of just stuff that we can do all over the world, depending on the partner, depending on the place, really like bring it to life in a big way.
How big is your team? How many people do you have doing that?
1 million? No, it feels like...
I mean, I guess chapter otherwise, but like, the staff of We Make Noise. Like
8 of us that work part-time.
Cool. Yeah, so this is incredible.
I met Nan at a Women in Music event right before I moved out of New York.
Really?
We were at the Safe Spaces launch, and I was like, oh, I really want to talk to you guys. It was one of those great moments.
She's a great example of our mission being cultivated internally as well. She's grown so much. And it really is like through music and tech. Nan has gone from, I think she was an intern, if I remember correctly. And now we've got 3 core leaders on the team and she's one of them, So it's cool. And we're everywhere. We have somebody that lives in Mexico City. 3 of us are in the States. Somebody's in Madrid. Somebody's in Istanbul. Somebody's in the Philippines. So it is like a really global org inside and out.
That's amazing. I'm pivoting for a second because I was thinking about this because we went through a name change ourselves. So I'm curious, how did the transition of changing the name from Beats by Girls go to We Make Noise? Are you still dealing with the formerly known as aspect of it?
Not really. I mean, it was a really difficult conclusion to come to. And I had really understood that it was necessary about a year and a half before we did it. And so I really didn't want to for quite a long time. And then once I understood why, it happened probably not fast enough, to be honest. And, going through that identity crisis, I guess, of who are we going to be if we're not this? And do we lose the brand value? These were like real questions that we had to ask. And we're very lucky. The current board chair that we have, this amazing woman named Stephanie Takata, she's the CEO of a fashion branding company, actually. And so we worked with her branding team to figure out what the look and the feel was, even the name, And we actually had to go through the whole process 2 times because the first time we really didn't nail it. And then the second time, I could just tell, I was like, wow, this feels really good. And it looked good and I was excited and there was just really no looking back.
Oh, I love the branding.
I don't even like saying Beats by Girls anymore, to be honest. We're so much more grown up than that now. So
I was thinking as you were describing all of the moving parts of this, you're really just training communicators, basically, like people to advance their ideas for equity in the world and all that stuff. And so I feel like it's so representative of that mission rather than just how we talk about it. It almost seems more narrow to be like, let's just have more women in music. Like it's so much more about just societal change through the lens of these tools that you are good to teach the value of education so that people can have long careers. And it's so much bigger than that. It's like, this is how you help make a better world, is helping people communicate like this and tell their stories in this way. So that's pretty powerful.
It's nice to hear you articulate that back to me and tell me that it makes sense, because I often spend so much time explaining it to potential funders, and like telling the story and helping them to understand why it's important. And not everybody gets it. So Thank you.
We do.
For sure. And it's reminding me, I've worked on a podcast before with a company that was, or another org that was doing video production workshops and stuff when they'd partner with embassies and all this. It's reminding me so much of the chapter model and all this. And it was such a profound experience. And so I wanted to ask you, do you have any stories that come to mind of like the why moments of, all around the world as you're doing these stories that kind of bowled you over of people that learned this and what they made with it and stuff, right? Does anything come to mind of your like, this is the why, the work?
Totally. There's been a couple younger people that have started when they were teenagers, middle school age, and then now they're in or almost complete with their college experience. And one of them went to Drexel on a full ride scholarship to study music business. And then we had another young trans woman who came from a chapter in Columbus, Ohio, and she's now on full scholarship at Berkeley as an electronic digital instrument student. So she's using the technology as an instrument, which there's just not very many women in that space, in that degree. So there's a lot of collegiate stuff that I could say from a youth programming perspective into now college and exiting college. And then there's the next strata of that where people who we sort of encountered in their college years or early career. Danielle Thwaites is a really good example of somebody who now she's doing playback. I think she's on tour with Olivia Rodrigo right now. Oh, yeah. But she's just an incredibly successful playback engineer. And there's about 3. Marcella's on tour with Kalani. Stacy's on tour. I can't remember. She's in Germany. I can't remember the name of the artist. But we have 3 or 4 people who are touring playback engineers. We have 4 or 5 that are Ableton certified trainers. So there's like a career element of it. We've placed well over, at this point, like 60 people with credits, writing, producing, and engineering credits on records. And some of them quite big. Like this year we'll have 12 people placed on the new Agnes Mo record, which will be a really big deal. So those are more of the quantifiable impact. And then there's the more emotional moments. I remember right after the election in November, we had a writing and production camp in Colorado. It was like the next weekend. And that whole thing started in a really weird place. Like everybody was really upset. And there was a trans writer who was with us. And I could tell that it was just a difficult place to be mentally. It's like, okay, we're here to write for this incredible artist, and we're all incredibly disappointed about, what the result of the election in America was. And community really is the antidote to so much. And by the time the 3 days was over, it was like we were all best friends, and you could tell that people didn't even want to go back to reality because it was just like so magical and special to be together, especially then. And that one woman, I mean, I remember her not being able to smile in the beginning. And then by the end, she was like up at the front playing air piano and like rocking out her song while everybody was listening. And, there's so many stories like that of people from Latin America or, I could name a million.
And it's a perfect kind of tie into, we've been talking a lot about, because with these big social brands and everything, these orgs that everybody has, like nationally, things are national and we're also virtual. It's such a thing. But tying that to in-person, local community aspects is so important to have that whole life cycle together. And I was just going to ask you why you think that's important. And I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. Like there's something that being in community on that tangible level brings in terms of healing, education, and all that it just compounds so much what a larger platform does. And you need both. But yeah, do you have thoughts on that? The interplay of that, because you do that so well with all of your events and the chapter things, like you mirror everything on this big national scale with tangible in-person or community-driven impact. So yeah, how do you conceptualize that? And do you have any thoughts on that too? Because that's been on the mind over here.
I mean, the world has changed so much in the past 5 years, and we actually did nothing online until the pandemic. So talk about a left turn. And I feel like we've course corrected in some, like the world has course corrected, right? Where, I think the pendulum swung the other way, where people were like, I never want to be online ever again. And the appetite to be together was quite strong.
Yeah.
But I think now we live in a world where both are just everyone's reality. Well, I mean, maybe not everybody, but it's not so far-fetched to be like, I'm going to do this 4-week Zoom class and I'm also going to go out and play a show later that night or something. So I think we've just been honestly responding to what people have told us that they want. And I think that's why the proliferation has sort of been at scale, is truly just by listening to people. That's how it works at a local level. Like, I don't know what is the right thing to do in El Salvador, but if I listen to the women in El Salvador tell me that, and then I help them do that, then we succeed, right? Because there are people that are living there, and like, who am I to say?
Yeah, it's just productive. That's just how you do what needs to be done.
We just listen to what people want. And I feel like that's really what we've been doing this whole time, whether it's online or in person. And we didn't really focus too much on professional development until maybe 4 years ago, to be honest. Because it felt like in the beginning, the need for education was quite large, because there was just this huge gap in terms of just people even being visible and knowing and being able to do things. And now maybe it's the algorithm, but I feel like a lot of people know how to do stuff now. And, there's not a person in the world that I haven't somehow taught how to like plug a MIDI cable in via some Berkeley Online Ableton video that pops up. So it just sort of has seemed like now people want us to help them find real work, and people want us to be giving them opportunities. And so that's just what we're responding to what they're telling us.
It's very much a model of growth and really listening to your audience, what they truly need to be successful and for you to be successful. Because if you're not listening, then what do you have to give, Well,
a lot of people don't listen. I think the majority of people don't listen.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think my point of that statement is it's so rare to see an organization truly listening to what is needed, right? So hearing that that's kind of your first step forward is inspiring and makes me want to sign up and be like, what's going on over here?
Do it.
Yeah, the longevity of it too, right? I was thinking as you were talking of like, you just expressed how it is so tied to the fact that you were not virtual before, and then COVID happened and then you were. And I think I even asked that question about it from the perspective of like, we started in the beginning of the pandemic. Like, so many of these orgs, I feel like, are post-pandemic virtual world things that are like just virtual programs that are like, oh, we need in person now. And I feel like having the longevity and that responsive nature of like, you exist to listen and fill the needs and stuff over the period of time that you've seen pre-COVID, that's why you're so successful in this, because you're not quite just playing catch up as much. Like, you have that knowledge base to draw from and brilliant people on your board and the people on the ground and stuff. So yeah, just good responsive leadership, it sounds like.
Thank you. I'm trying. I know in the explanation of it, it all just sounds like one gigantic accident, but it seems to be working out. So I'm glad that you're sort of receiving it like that.
I don't think we're the only ones.
No, I don't. So talk to us a little bit about balance, because we've talked about all the hats that you currently wear, that you've worn over the years. How do you stay focused and productive with it all, let alone having a life outside of music?
Well, I got to just start by saying that I'm really lucky to have my position at Arizona State, because it's a tenure track position. And I go up for tenure next year. But the way that this works, and this is something that I didn't know a lot about, because I am the holder of a bachelor degree, and that's the end of it for me. So like, I'm not a doctor, nor do I have a master's degree, but tenure track faculty, a portion of their responsibilities with their academic appointment is research and creative activity. And so for me, 40% of my time that I spend for my job at ASU is literally carved out for me to do my advocacy work. So
that's awesome.
It is, right? It's like the perfect situation where I'm rewarded for continuing to stay relevant, to be making an impact and spreading the good stuff all around. So I'm like highly enabled by this university position, and I'm so grateful for the safety and the support that I receive from Arizona State. So I just want to like start off by saying that maybe it does seem like I have 2 full-time jobs, but it's almost like I have 2 part-time jobs. And then I have these really, really strong teams that I've built around me in order to support and help. So at ASU, I have an incredible assistant director. His name is Samuel, and an amazing set of faculty that I got to contribute to the hiring of every single one of these people. Like, imagine if you got to choose every one of your coworkers, what life might be like.
We all dream. We all dream.
Right?
It's your life that we're just living vicariously through.
But it really does make a difference. And same thing with We Make Noise. I have everybody that works there. We're really in alignment. And I spend a lot of time trying to cultivate the right kind of culture and the value system that translates into behaviors and actions so that everyone's like empowered to do their best and do their thing. And I receive support where I need it. And that's how it gets done. Like now at this point in my career, I can sort of step back a little bit and focus more on like, what is the vision? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? How are we going to resource that? Which is quite difficult, actually. I feel like now I raise money. Really, what I am now is like a deal maker and a fundraiser.
I have to say, your Women's History Month We Make Noise campaign, I was awesome to follow.
You were sold.
Thank you.
I DM'd her a couple of times, like this Noisegram thing. Oh my gosh.
I know. I thought it was cute too. So thank you for following that. And I mean, that's mostly how the balance happens. And it wasn't always like that. When I was at Berkeley, it was 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's no way that I could do that now, especially as I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. And that's a lot. I have a husband that's really supportive as well. And he picks up a lot of the slack where I have to be elsewhere doing other more career stuff. So it's not my forte being balanced, but I feel like I have gotten better over the years. And yeah, it's hard being ambitious and young.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm a little smarter.
Like, do you have a team? Like that was fully my like inner, I would burn the hell out of myself out speaking. So like you have just like schooled us a little bit on that. That's brilliant. Like that's how you do it, is you surround yourself with the right people but also create the atmosphere where they want to be there. And you give them the runway to do what they're best at and do all this important work.
Yeah. When it works really well. When it doesn't work, it's bad. It's not very good. And I've learned a lot of how to do that well and how it doesn't work well over the years. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I look back on my career and I'm like, is this why I got into making music? So that I could ask people for money all the time and boss people around and like fire people and hire, like, no, obviously that's it's not why I got into this, but I don't know. Like somebody has to do this job. Somebody has to be in leadership. Somebody has to have the vision and somebody has to know how we're going to get there. And for me right now, it's just the next most exciting challenge that's in front of me. And it's really hard, but I feel like I'm learning a lot all the time. Never ends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I want to ask you so many more things, but I got to send you off on the rest of your day. I feel like we need a part 2 one day.
I'm always here for a good NAM women moment.
Yes. Real quick, before we end. Yeah. What's something that like, it makes you feel really happy these days? I also have to say your nails are awesome on your Instagram. Like the creative expression of that. So rad.
This makes me
Talk
happy.
to us about that. Like, where does that come from? Do you just like, talk to us about that as like a fun, just creative outlet.
Yeah. I started doing my own nails a lot. God, I want to say like around 2006, 2007, I'm like a chronic nail biter.
Wait. You did those yourself?
No, I did not. That would be incredible.
It began
that would be so amazing. I was like, you didn't know that I also
an artisan of
these are my little canvases. Sick. No, I started doing my nails a lot because I was just constantly, I don't know, like stressed out and worried. And I would look down and like my hands would be bleeding because I was just like a ball of anxiety. And so I started doing them. It would prevent me from doing that, honestly. And like the only way I could stop myself was to have them painted and kind of take care of them. And so I did that for years and years. And I mean, I have had a few forays into some dot art or something on my own hands.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me happy. You know, it's like looking down and you get to just be happy all the time. And so, yeah, I get my nails done every like 3 weeks. And I have a very close relationship with my nail tech, Bree. And she's like my therapist and my girlfriend.
Shout out, Bree.
And yeah. Right? So, yeah, that makes me happy. Exercising. I like to exercise. That helps with the balance and the joy also. Reading. I read a lot. That's what I do.
I love it.
What's your favorite book you read lately?
I'm reading a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl right now, which apparently was like a TikTok book or something. I don't have TikTok, so that's not how I found out about it. But it's it's like a role player RPG book. I've never read anything like it, but it's incredible. So I highly recommend Dungeon Crawler Carl. Yeah.
I love it.
Here we go.
Well, Erin, Thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on the podcast. Thank you for pulling the curtain back on your journey of, I don't want to call it happy accidents. I think your journey was meant to be
surrender. Surrender. Have you read The Surrender Experiment or The Untethered Soul? Because your life is that.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Well, like very different lives, but the spirit of that.
The idea.
Like, yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
feel like lots of people who end up somehow in leadership, it's just like, or actually just music in general. It's just the craziest, wildest story, and yeah, I'm sure that mine is unique, yet the same as so many people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all that you do for music education. Thank you for all that you do for bridging that gap and bringing more gender equity to music and technology. The work you do is incredible. And the industry is so honored to have you part of it.
And the world. Like,
yes.
Not even just the US music industry. Jeez. Yeah. So we will be continuing to cheer you on from over here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being able to talk about the experience, and I hope so many people listen and enjoy the story as well.
Yes.
And get inspired in their own
Yes.
surrender journeys. You never know what's coming.
No, I don't.
It'd be boring if we did.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Revoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or visit our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Women of NAMM. This episode was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olson. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. See you next time.